Same link.
Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of ZEISS Conversations Live. We are here. Sorry about the little bobble last week and the little bit of bobble this afternoon. This technology thing, it's funky out there. But we're here, and we've got a great guest for you today. We're going to continue our conversation about video and travel and putting it all together. And what we've done today is we've brought on our very favorite friend of the family, Mr. Jason Vong. He's going to be meeting with us and talking about some travel that he did to Japan and a series of tips and tricks that he put together that's going to help you get the best out of what you're packing for when those travel trips come up later in this year, hopefully. So on the left, you see we have ZEISS Ambassador Kenneth Hines. He's with us today, as well as ZEISS Ambassador Tracy Page. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Hey,
So,
Jason, you got big shoes to fill already.
Oh boy. Oh
You
boy, here we
started with
go.
the pressure. Now you got to bring it.
I was like, why did I put together anything? Well, let's just jog my memory a little bit and hopefully I'll pump out some good information for
there you go.
everybody.
There
But
you
thanks for
go.
having me again.
Of
Thanks for having me
course.
again. I really love to be back.
Happy to have you here. So we could tell everybody there. About a year ago, you took a trip to Japan and took some gear with you. The intent of it was to kind of come back and put together an educational piece or pieces to try and give everybody some tips and tricks on how you produce video on the road or even for wedding photography, because I know you do that a lot as well. So can you give us a little bit of a setup on how that how you put that whole program together?
Yeah, so when we kind of approach each other for this type of collaboration, it's really interesting because I've always wanted to take the whole, reviews and tutorials to the next level. So what I like to do on my YouTube channel, for those of you who are not familiar with what I do, is I do a lot of reviews and tutorials on hybrid shooting, which is a fancy way of saying someone who shoots both photos and videos. And I think everyone inherently is a hybrid shooter. But at the same time, what I like to do is when we travel, it's the best time to kind of put the camera and the lenses and all these technology to use because, when's a better time to see these types of technology in action other than traveling? So I feel like where we come from in terms of supplying these types of reviews and tutorials is that not only do you get the aspects of how these lenses and how these technology performs, but also getting the scenic view, the beauty of the location that we're in. So being able to do this collaboration with ZEISS, with you, Tony, has been wonders. And I feel like we had a lot of success in that. And for those of you who want to check out the how to make a travel film, travel video, definitely head to my YouTube channel, Jason Vong, and you'll see this collaboration that we've done with ZEISS. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was
Not
really
just
terrific. Go ahead, Tracy.
not just travel videos, but you've got the 24 tips also about just how to do it with the Sony. I was very impressed. I learned a lot.
Yep. That's what that's what I like to do on my channel. It's just like making sure we're delivering straight facts. Get yourself going with the camera that you have, and just focus more on the creativity rather than being boggled by the tech itself. So that's what we're trying to aim for on the YouTube channel.
I also like the way you broke it down. So you're like, this segment we're just going to deal with this topic, and this segment we're going to talk about the gimbal, and so trying to throw everything at us at one time.
Yes. I think me trying to break down. So the first, four videos is just, first one, gear, second, on all about the autofocus settings. Cause we have technology like this right now, especially with the Sony Alpha mirrorless cameras, so that you don't have to worry about pulling your own focus, especially when you're making videos nowadays. You can just trust it to nail focus for you. So that's what we kind of focus on in the second video. The third video, more of the cinematic, settings, cause like people have always asked me, like, what are the best cinematic settings? Like, how do you set up the correct shutter speed for the slow motion? Should I get an ND filter? And we tackle all of that. And of course, the gimbal, this is what's going to help you give you that smooth, steady shots. And I feel like that's something that really helps elevate the sort of travel videos that people would do. Most people would take their camera, take a photo, or maybe they'll just hit the record button and do some simple pans and tilts. But with that gimbal, you're adding a whole different element to it. And what I I guess what I really love to do with the stabilizer gimbal is slap on an ultra wide angle lens like the ZEISS 18 and just kind of go through to the location, put the viewers like they're traveling there with me, showcase all that scenery with that kind of technology right there. It's really awesome.
Yeah, awesome. So, how did you actually come about with, going to Tokyo and doing this particular video? Did you say, "Oh, this is where I want to go and I want to use these lenses here." How did that whole thing come about as far as that being your destination, which I'm jealous about, by the way?
Yeah, we
You
both are.
know, I think one of the things is that my girlfriend and I, Vivian, we travel and we do all the YouTube stuff together, and we're just like, wouldn't it be great to do some of this stuff in Japan? Just like, wouldn't it be great to make content out there? And I've always expressed that to her. So when the opportunity came with ZEISS with Tony, we're just like, this has to be a location because one, we already love going to Japan first and foremost. Two, it's just like a place that, I want to say we're comfortable with and, we're very familiar with. So we know we'll do a really bang up job for everybody and put together something out there for the community to really learn from. So that's probably how we chose Japan as the core focus of this particular educational piece. Aside from that, I mean, like for us, when it comes to travel, for any place, it's really been like more on where we personally want to go. So I feel like when we have a say and a place that we are really curious about, we'll definitely go there and try to make something cool out of it.
Oh, awesome. And as far as kind of like what you were doing in terms of your video, I try to stay away from the video department. That's all you. Do you have as far as in camera, as far as what are you utilizing? What did you film? What camera did you use? What were some of your kind of like go-to lenses for that? As well as what were your internal choices for your video production, such as like your picture profiles? Do you have a go-to picture profile that you used exclusively for that, or something that's your favorite? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the particular ZEISS travel series that we did, we rocked two A7 IIIs, very fantastic mirrorless camera system
Nice.
that you can pick up. I think you can get one now for about maybe even 16 to 1800 bucks, and it's a really nice entry level full frame camera that has a packet full of features, autofocus, picture profiles, and all that good jazz. So I would highly recommend the A7 III as a great travel setup, a great travel camera. For again that particular series, we brought all 5 bodice lenses, which is
Oh,
a bit of an
nice.
overkill. It's a bit of an overkill, not gonna lie, but we definitely wanted to put each lens to at its paces. But for the most part, I would say the 2 lenses that I've always fell back on, even after the travel, for anything that I do, would be the 25 millimeter and the 85 millimeter bodice. You got your wide and you got your telephoto cover. So I would recommend anybody who's looking to do something really similar when it comes to traveling, just having these 2 contrasting focal lengths, a wide and the tele. You're gonna be pretty much set to shoot whatever it is you need to shoot when you're out there. I would say the cinematic film, the 3-minute piece that I put together of Japan, has been shot with at least 80% of it was shot with the 25 and the 85. The rest was the 18, the 40, and maybe 5% of that was with the 135. When things are just super duper far away, man, that 135 comes in clutch. And in terms of, yeah,
I
go
love
ahead.
the sweep. No, I love the sweep that we're seeing some of the video right now, and I love. I think is this the 18 or the now it's changed again. I
It's
love the
changed,
sweep.
yeah.
I love your cinematic sweep, but I love how you also lead us through what lens does which one.
Yeah, definitely showcasing all of that. So all the bodice lenses came into play. Every lens has its job, had its own little critical roles to play. So I feel like the whole set right there, 18, 25, 40, 85, 135, it's a family of set right there. So great lenses to have, but for anyone out there, 5 is a little bit of an overkill, not gonna lie. Just 2 or 3 would definitely cover the job. I promise you that. I know we talked a little bit about picture profiles. The question was asked. For me, when it comes to the whole travel stuff, even for my own YouTube videos, and we discussed this on the Instagram Live with Professor Hines, is that I don't do too much crazy color grading. I definitely don't want anyone to be watching to be like, oh, I can't do that. I can't replicate something like this. So what I do is I try to go as much true to life as possible when it comes to the coloring. So for the most part, I would say, if there's no too crazy of a mixed lighting situation, nothing that I have to really stretch the dynamic range on, I go no picture profile on the Sony cameras, dynamic range optimizer set to auto, and just kind of let it do its thing, and the colors come out of that camera is fantastic. However, there are times where the sun is just not in our favor. It's really harsh. The highlights are just getting destroyed, blown out. Then I switch over to hybrid log gamma, which is a much friendlier flat profile that anyone can just start messing with. If you have the experience like coloring a photo, hybrid log gamma is essentially almost like a raw that you can just push, just kind of like balance out your colors and add some saturation back in, and you're good to go. So those are the type of picture profiles I use for anything that I do.
I like that because it's for someone like yourself that does a lot of product reviews, and you're really showcasing how a particular product might work for one person versus the other. That really shows, firsthand, this is what you can actually obtain straight from the camera. If you're not that experienced in photo editing or even in video editing, as you make it look like it's so simple, but for someone like me, I'm like, how in the world does he do that? And it's probably just the simplest thing ever, which is like me in photo editing. People think I spend hours there, but I'm like, it's simple.
Yeah, I think that's something that I really emphasized in the entire series, especially the gimbals. The gimbal stuff, they're daunting to some people, right? It's like, what is this type of contraption? Like, how do I control this? But in I believe my fourth part of the series, I was like, look, you don't have to do any crazy gimbal movements, all right? You don't have to swing your gimbal around to get the coolest shot. I'm just like, just take it slow, take it easy, walk on a straight path, just do it slow. And these subtle shots, these subtle movements can just end up creating some of the most powerful shots. And that's the whole thing when it comes to that kind of what separates photography and video, is that, you don't have to necessarily do too much movement in the video. You kind of let either the scene moves itself, or you kind of help just move the scene for the viewers. So I think that's what's great about having a gimbal.
There was one
Jason,
where
remind us again, what was the brand of the gimbal again?
Yes. So it's the Dune Weeble, the one that the Weeble app in the video that I'm seeing. That's the particular model. That's the particular brand. They had an upgrade. They have the Weeble S now, which handles a much heavier lens setup, but still that tiny compact form factor. And those are still fantastic. I personally like using the prime lenses and lighter lenses on that type of gimbal because it just makes it easier to travel with. So that's the one that I highly recommend. There are a ton of gimbals out there that does almost exactly the same thing. But when it comes to that travel form factor and you still want to use a fairly decent setup like the A7 III, the Weeble Lab, the Weeble S are two of the ones that I would highly recommend for anyone to pick up for these types of travel.
I really liked the portability of that gimbal, and the portability and the stability combined. I thought it was pretty impressive.
Absolutely. It just fits in the backpack. I was using a think tank backpack right there, and the front pouch is like kind of wide. It's almost like, a laptop. You can fit that laptop in there, but when you compact that Weeble into that form factor, it fits right into that laptop compartment. So it's really nice.
Oh, okay. There is a part during the video where you're at the that infamous intersection where it's a ton of people, and it looks like you're using a jib. I was like, how in the world? Like, it just kept going up, up, and up. I'm like, I know Jason's height, so how is he going that high? And then when you did the behind the scenes of that, I was like, what a novel idea, having a tripod extended and you use the tripod. I thought that was just being creative. I mean, how did you even come up with that? How did you think to use that?
You know, I'm definitely not the first person to thought of this, but I may be one of the first few people to execute something like that in that particular area. I was just like, you know, let's just try to do something fun, you know, let's just try to, because you know everyone is walking in the intersection, and you know, like you said, I'm not that tall. I'm eye level with anyone, so I can't bring that camera up any higher. But you know, extending the tripod, which is, you know, you got to be careful, got to make
Right.
sure everything is
Yeah.
locked down first, you know, nothing, no loose screws, nothing like that. And once you got that kind of covered up, you just kind of just raise it up.
I'm a
little faux jib shot.
I'm a
Hmm.
short girl, so I have used my monopod like that many times.
Yeah, yeah. I just feel like it's instinctive for, you know, photographers and videographers. Just like, well, how can I get some extra height? Boom, put it on a monopod, put it on a tripod.
Right.
So it worked out for us. I was using the 18 millimeter, which helped really just kind of exaggerate how wide the landscape is, and you know, kind of, you know, make it a lot higher than it is. But it's not that crazy. Now the height is definitely not that crazy with the whole
That
setup. So it's really cool.
It's funny that you said boom, because that's actually where I got the idea from, was the, you know, because I work a lot in the film industry, and the boom, they hold the mic on, so that I thought I could use my monopod the same way. And I never use it as a monopod. I use it for those times when I need height and I can't get up.
Yeah, and just to emphasize, you know, we were talking about that lighter gimbal, that smaller gimbal. You can't
Hmm.
execute that with a heavier gimbal unless, you know, you have the proper type of equipment and the proper, you know, like sort of strength. We were talking about the tripod. So again, going for that lighter setup with that high quality full frame A7 III and everything, it was just perfect. It was perfect right there.
I've never done that with a gimbal before, so now I'm going to have to get a gimbal to go on the end of my monopod. So I was pretty
Yeah,
impressed.
it's fun. It's fun. These things definitely help elevate the production, even for small stuff like this. And keep in mind, you know, the whole video that was made was literally just me and my girlfriend Vivian. You know, so it doesn't take like a crazy team of people to do it. It just takes one person with some creativity, and boom, you're ready to go to make something cool.
I think there was a shot where you actually you come behind Vivian, and I remembered that.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool.
That was
Yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite of that. That was so
Oh,
cool.
thank you, thank you, thank
This
you,
is
thank
why
you.
I don't travel with my husband, because he would just look at me like I was crazy. So I think that Vivian is willing to be a subject as she
Oh,
raises her in my
there are
estimation.
times. There's definitely times she was like, you know, like, well, really, you know, but you know,
Yeah.
she
Yeah. For me,
understands, and when I show her the results, she's just like, wow, that's great, it's fantastic.
oh yeah, that's the shot. Yeah, I love that with her crossing the street.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, it's so awesome. So here's kind of another question that I feel that people who may be doing travel, sometimes they'll go online and they'll see people post photos of things that might interest them, and they'll ask someone, "Oh, hey, where was this?" or "Where was that?" And a lot of times, people don't always respond to those types of questions. How do you actually go about when you're planning any kind of travel, as far as where you're going to go and at what time you're going to go to those locations? Because I remember in your behind the scenes that you had shared on your Instagram, there was one location that you wanted to go to and it was under construction. So it's, those are probably some things that it's like you have to kind of look up beforehand and kind of plan out and see if the actual structure is there or actually built before you go. So how do you actually go about planning for your travels and where you're going to go?
You know, that's a really funny thing that you brought up with the whole construction thing. I see. I'm the type of person that's just like, oh, dude, this is a cool photo. I'm just gonna go there without even bothering
Hmm.
checking social media or anything. And that's like the funniest thing, right? Because in that particular day, I was already kind of stalking Instagram story, which is fantastic for early location scanning. It's like, is it worth my time to go there right now? Are the flowers in bloom?
Right.
Are the leaves in the right color right now? So let me just go ahead and pull up an Instagram story. Okay, it's too cloudy for the Mount Fuji, or too cloudy for this particular location. I'm not going to go. But for some reason, that just sometimes it just never hits me over my head. I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to go and do it. Oh well, guess there's construction going on. But anyways, besides trial and error, how we plan our location is just really, it's just spots that, personally, where we want to go. We see all these amazing photos on Instagram, and we're just like, let's just try to go to this place and see what we can do in terms of video, because photos, they're amazing, they're stunning, but let's try to add a video element to it. So how we plan for it is like, I would look on Instagram. Again, Instagram, hashtag Japan love, just following all these like different hashtags, just seeing these amazing photos that come out from someone. And just by that, I'm just like, we got to go here. We got to try out this location. Let's see what we can do here. So that's one of the ways that we kind of like get locations in our head. But also at the same time, simple Google searches or just, any sort of touristy spot or maybe a restaurant we want to eat, and we kind of look around the area and see like what are some of the spots that people might have mentioned to really go check out. So that's how we sort of tackle the locations that we want to go to. As far as the best times to shoot, oh man, we made so much mistakes when it comes to doing these types of travel. Weather is never in our favor, but the consistency we can always fall back on is if you want the best lighting, you want to go early morning, or you want to stay till sunset or at night. You want to try to avoid all the harsh noon situations and try not to shoot then, because it's just hard to balance the lighting. I mean, like, it's easy. I wouldn't say it's easy for photos, but it's definitely a lot more manageable when it comes to photography to kind of save certain, highlights and, and shadows. But when it comes to videos, it's less information to kind of bring back. So for that particular hour where it's harsh, we would try to hit the more indoor spots, somewhere with the most shades to focus filming that. And for anything that's outdoors, we focus more in the morning, sunset, or night.
What, you don't have scrims and flags in your backpack?
Oh, I try not to whip those out and, cause some attention with the folks. But no, again, going back to just traveling light and just, bring the most necessary gear, what just makes our lives, will make our lives easier.
Then that brings in another topic real quick. When you do start bringing additional things like that, then they view you as a professional, and a lot of times they don't want to let you shoot there. So traveling light helps you get in.
I mean, even with the gimbal, even with a Sony camera now, I remember back then, it's just like, Sony cameras can get away with a lot of things. Yes. They're like, oh, that's not a Canon, that's not an Nikon, that ain't a professional camera. And you're like, yup, you're right, totally. Let me just film my little thing. And now it's just blended so well now that it's just like, the moment you whip it out and, you got security is just like, you need to put that away. But for sure, I mean, like, they may think it's like a really professional production, but at the end of the day, it's just, it's a fun little YouTube video for everyone. And I think that should be fine. So carrying something light and a little bit discreet definitely does help a lot when it comes to making these types of travel videos.
So that leads into something else as well. Everything just leads into one another. So when you travel, depending on where you're going, you have weight restrictions where you can't take a lot of gear, and you have to take things that are lighter, and because whatever aircraft you might be going on to a specific region, they'll have those very strict sort of weight restrictions. So that's very important as you're traveling, and learning to pack light, learning to take less, because you're going to have those situations where you can't take the gear that you might want and to utilize, and have to think of alternatives. So have you ever been in a situation like that on any of your travels so far?
Yes. So I think Tony brought up that I do a bit of wedding videography, and I actually had my first opportunity 3 years ago to shoot a destination wedding out in Nice, France. Gorgeous destination, gorgeous. Oh, it was an experience for sure. Unfortunately, at that time, I was probably really new to wedding filmmaking. And that was like the first time I first shot a wedding, which was very nerve-wracking. So, we have clients that are like bringing us out, spending thousands and thousands of dollars just for us to create wedding photos and wedding videos. And I'm over here freaking out. I'm just like, man, I can't bring all this stuff with me. It's hard. Like, how am I going to create the same quality with the limited gear that I need to bring? And the thing about flying into Nice is that, it's a small little aircraft. So their weight limit was already like something really ridiculous. I think it was like maybe I want to say 12 pounds. It's not like the 50
Wow.
pounds that you're used to when you're traveling international. So I was like worried. I was like, oh my God, like what if what if they tell me I can't get on the flight with all my gear? What am I gonna do? So that has definitely happened. So thankfully, everything I stuffed all my stuff into my backpack and I was able to get it through. They didn't check, but yeah, just, word of advice is just to make sure, double check with the airlines. What is it that you can bring in? What is it, what is the weight limit? Because there are times where, you're caught in a small aircraft and they're like, no, you can't bring in this much stuff with you. It's way too heavy. So definitely check
Yeah.
early in advance.
If you think you're going to be on a small airplane, you need to not have an airplane. You need to not have wheels. Is the big thing that I've learned. A small,
Yeah.
Because if you have wheels, they'll try to valet pack your bag, and then your gig is up. So
yeah, I'm so glad because then I invested in this long think tank case. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. This coffee.
Yeah, the production case, right?
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna bring 3 light stand with me to France. And good thing I did not do that, because that check-in would have been expensive, and the client already wasn't gonna pay too crazy of an amount for me to check in my stuff. They already paid me my fee and everything, but for me to check in something like that, ooh, that would have been trouble. And for me to get on that small aircraft, that would have been a no. So for sure, gotta check that in advance.
I have found that it's cheaper for me to either rent when I get there, or buy, if I can get something really, really cheap from a vendor like Amazon and just have it prime shipped and then just leave it when I leave, and not try to take it back with me. Then
that's a smart tip. That's actually a very smart tip.
I do that with my steamers. I ship myself a steamer for $10 via Amazon Prime, and then I just leave it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's definitely helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
But you can't do that for a lens. You can't order a lens and leave it now. Hopefully.
No, but you can, hopefully, but then the lens, you've got to make sure it's on your carry-on. So if you're going to be on a smaller plane, you got to make sure carry-on doesn't have wheels and that your lens is in that carry-on. And your batteries, you got to watch all your lithium batteries, because you can't pack those. You can't have those end up in valet.
One thing I will say is I actually ended up having to buy a lens at a particular destination. It was the ZEISS Spottis 40, which was sold out in America. I was trying to hunt it down from D&H and Amazon, but literally no vendors here was carrying that lens. I was calling up my local Sammys. I was like, look, you guys have this lens. I'm about to leave for Hong Kong tomorrow. And they're like, no. So I ended up having to buy the lens in Hong Kong just to be able to have it for a couple of shoots. So yeah, definitely. Shop at your destination too. That could definitely work.
Yeah, just make sure you can take it back or leave it behind.
Yeah.
Jason, there's a good question that just came in from the chat. Is what would your top 3 pieces of advice be to start building your own photography brand? Do you mostly do wedding besides travel photography?
I would say my main thing now has been YouTube. So to build a photography brand, I might need some help from the other folks out there. But for me in particular, we just kind of like really, it's always been a word of mouth, for us, especially with the whole wedding videography business. It's always been like, we shoot this person's wedding, this person's going to recommend us, and they'll pass our contact along. So that's definitely one of the ways that we grew our wedding business, was just through, my wedding partner is actually, he attends church, so he has a lot of churchgoer friends that are just like, hey, would you mind shooting our wedding? So that's how we've been getting a lot of our gigs in terms of the wedding video side.
Awesome.
I always tell people, when you're building your brand, to show what you want to do. I think on your Insta media, you have to show what you need to. I have to bow out for just a second.
Not a problem.
Okay, no worries. Yes. Professor, you got anything for us?
As I got sidetracked. So kind of leading into what kind of Tracy's direction was as far as with building a photography brand. My kind of advice to people is, kind of echoing what she said, show what it is that you want to do. Now, being multidisciplined, I basically photograph everything there is. And I do that because I love the fact that if I get tired of weddings, for example, because they become tiring, if you're doing 8-10 hour days, and if you're doing them every week, they can become a pain sometimes. And you want to have that balance of where you kind of get out of that element and you can do something else, kind of clear your mind, and then come back refreshed and can really think creatively. And so, it's a matter of, just take photography as that general title, photography. Don't classify like wedding photography or street photography. Do it all. See what you love. There are going to be things that you might love more than others, but it's always a learning experience from every genre because they all do, mix with one another. What
Yeah.
I do as a street photographer, I can apply that to a wedding. It just makes me think more outside of the box than if I just stuck to one genre.
Yeah. I think to build on top of that, like I said in the beginning, I feel like my main thing is YouTube, but then at the same time, it's about always just doing, because I do what I love to do and focus on filming and photographing the things that I personally particularly enjoy, that I sort of built this brand unconsciously that's just like, hey, when you look up Jason Vong, he's a Sony guy, he's the wedding guy, and now he does travel, so it's just focusing on the things that you like to do and publish it and share that work. That's another great way to build up your photography or videography brand.
Yeah, and you're a good videographer because Tony was showing some clips from our video together in New York. Because that was actually the very first interview I've ever done, and you did a fine job with that. And another ZEISS Bodice project. Because we definitely love those lenses. And I definitely can say for like what you do with your content, I think what kind of sets you apart from others of what I personally feel is that you try to tackle so many different areas to show and highlight in videography and photography that, you can do this with what you have. You don't have to go out and buy, thousands of dollars worth of gear, because you actually had a video not that long ago where you were showing products that you bought off Amazon that was like, just random little things to see, could you make it work or would it not work? I thought that was very, very fun to watch. And so it's like you have something for everybody. And that's something that's a very important thing. And especially with what we're going through right now, is that you make content that everyone can learn from, from people that may be extreme experts or professionals to those that are just like, I just bought this camera yesterday, and they can pull up your YouTube channel and follow along with, okay, here's how to start setting up your camera. And then they can just stay on your channel and learn how to take it a step further. And, doing a video like this with the travel in Japan, that gives people to kind of look at something and say, I can actually do this. He has the tools here that he's presenting. I can watch this. I could maybe do something like this.
It's funny, you're saying like, oh, I'm preaching about like, you don't need the most expensive gear. You don't need to keep buying stuff. I feel like if anyone who's watching this live stream right now who's familiar with my work, it would be like, that's not true. Jason Vong has always been pushing for us to pull out our wallet and stop spending money on
Jason
stuff.
buys. You got that bug, man. I've seen you. You go, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to buy it, and suddenly it's there. Look what I got.
Yeah, that's that's definitely a very fun trait that I would say is, that I have, and I have that influence with my friends as well, and they're just like, wow, I really want this, and I hate you for making this video because it really just confirmed my thoughts that I should be buying this lens, and I'm like, yep, for sure. But no, definitely on that end, I definitely do want to have videos out there that's like, look, at the end of the day, it's about what you have and what you can do with it. So the fun stuff is always like, let's buy something and see what we can do with it. But I'm always catering back, trying to like cater to the crowd that's just like, we don't have, too much money to spend, but what can we do to make something cool out of it? So
I think you said this earlier
focus.
in our pre-conversation that not everybody was privy to, but we talked about resonating with an audience. And I think what you're doing is you are resonating with everybody. You're showing us what we can do with what we have, and you're also showing us what's possible with other things. And gives us great ideas, and it does make us a little bit green-eyed to go out and buy things we probably shouldn't. So thanks for that, Jason.
Right.
Yeah, and I definitely want to chime in a little bit. If anyone's looking to start doing travel film or travel photography, and I get this question a lot from just my personal circle of friends. They're coming to me. They're like, "Hey, I saw that you're using a gimbal. Should I buy a gimbal? What about a GoPro? What do you think of? Maybe I can strap it on my backpack. What if I bring this? What if I bring that? Suddenly the list starts to add up." And I was like, look, I've been in your position before. Anytime a trip comes up, I'm ready to buy some stuff. It'd be cool to have this, have that, have this little knickknack to shoot something cool. But when you get there, you forget to realize that this is all the stuff that you have to be carrying like 8 to 10 hours. Because I know when people travel, they're not going to be staying in their hotel for too long. They got to get out there, and when you're lugging all this stuff, you're going to be bogged down. And by the second day, you'll be lucky to even carry just that one main camera that you brought with you, and another chance to even shoot some photos with it. So I always encourage my friends. I was like, look, just don't worry about some of the new stuff. Maybe bring one extra piece of new gear, but for the most part, stick with what you already know. Shoot with that first and see where that takes you. So for me, if you're asking my recommendation as to what is it that one piece of accessory to pair with my camera would be, I would say maybe a gimbal. Try it out first and see if you like it. Don't be impulsively buying things before a trip, because it's not going to end up well. So
You're
if
not
it's
talking
anything
me out
new,
of the gimbal. I'm buying one.
you can buy one. Definitely buy one. But I wouldn't recommend if you're coming in and just it'd be great to bring with me to travel. Definitely if you can get it beforehand, play with it a little bit first before you commit to bringing it to a trip. It would definitely help out a lot.
You know what?
Well, I will.
A lot of times I'll also recommend to people, and I do it myself because obviously lenses I can get. But everything else, when I want to try out or when I want to learn a different camera or a different format, you rent for 3 days or rent for your weekend. Because that way you get a sense of how this is going to work in the field before you actually lay the money on it.
Oh,
I bet the
absolutely.
best trip I had to Rome was with an RX 100 I rented. It was a terrific little camera. Fits
Well,
in
and
your
then the great
Yeah.
thing too is if you're renting from like Lens Rental, they're giving you the box and crate and
Mhm.
everything to ship it
Yeah.
back, so you don't have to, and I travel with I shoot with the Otises, so they're really heavy. So those
Right.
bodices are nice and lightweight, and you can fit several of them in. But if I was having to travel with too many Otises at one time, I'd probably Lens Rental them just so I didn't have to carry them.
I agree.
Yes.
They definitely can add up in weight. So in terms of talking about that, I do this on the photography side. If you're going to a location that you've never been to before and you're pondering as far as what type of gear you want to take, do you ever go back and look at like footage or photos that you've taken from a previous location that's similar to kind of see what focal lengths you utilize the most before you go? Or do you kind of just automatically go to, I'm going to take this lens and this lens because I know these lenses pretty well, that this is what I can use to cover what I need?
I really think at this point now, I feel like I've got my setup dialed in. So the 25 and the 85 was something that I'll always default to. If it's like anything else that I need to bring, I'll bring it. But for the most part, if there's for myself, for my own kind of like uh, 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 work, I would just bring the 25 and the 85. Yeah.
Those workhorse lenses.
Oh, they're fantastic. And one thing I will say is, when you're doing research in certain countries and locations, you should double check, what type of gear is allowed, because I know,
Yeah.
when people are thinking about travel, they automatically think of, oh, I should bring a drone with me. But in most areas now, I think like the drone laws are getting way strict to the point where it's not even legal to fly a drone. I know in Japan, I think in the city, you can't really fly a drone. So I didn't even bother bringing a drone. That's why I had to fake my own drone with that fake jib shot. You know what I'm
But
saying?
it worked.
But it worked. It worked. But other locations, like especially Cuba, we had an opportunity 2 years ago to go to Cuba. And Cuba is strict, no drone zone. So if you bring a drone, you will be in trouble. You try to fly a drone, you end up somewhere. So definitely research beforehand. Don't be bringing in things that are definitely not allowed in certain countries. So definitely look that up first.
I
Yeah.
learned last week to check the ferry schedule. I got to a location to Sapelo Island last week, and the ferry had left like 2 hours before. So,
Oh,
Wow.
like, damn it.
Yeah,
it's one
and
of those things where you just learn through mistakes. You know, I
Yeah.
jump in, I always jump head in first, but for stuff like that, definitely.
yeah, and there's locations that you go to. I know, like if you're here in the States, especially with arenas, stadiums, our new Mercedes-Benz stadium in Atlanta, where you can take a professional camera like an A7 III, but you can't, like if someone wants to go to a game and they'll probably automatically think, oh, let me take a 70-200. Well, you can't do that because it's above the actual length that the camera and body combo can be. So you have to use a lens and camera combo that's like, I think, within 6 or 8 inches. So that's also something for people to be mindful of, depending on where
Yeah.
they're going to.
Funny thing, I got to bring this up. We were in New York. We were watching a basketball game, me and Vivian, and we had the 85 Fadas with the A7 III. We had some really good seats. We were pretty dang close to the court, and I was rocking the RX100 Mark 7 with the 24-200 millimeter ZEISS lens on it. And the moment that Vivian whipped out the A7 III with the 85, she immediately got shut down. But I'm over here with my point and shoot, getting that 200 millimeter reach, and I was getting all these great shots of the basketball players, all the dunks, and all the the balls going to the hoop. It was amazing. But yes, yeah, you got to be careful bringing a setup like that in these types of places.
Yeah, I actually got away at Mercedes-Benz with the 6-inch rule. I had my lens hood on, and so all I did was just take the darn thing off, and I was underneath. I'm like, there you go. We're good to go with the 16-35. Let me in. So no question, I'm shooting away.
Yep.
No, I shot at Mercedes-Benz with a D850 with a 100 Otis on it. So with the lens hood on it. So maybe it just helps that I'm a female and I'm cute.
You just had to go there, Tracy.
You keep
that.
bringing up the cup, so
Just for that remark.
See, I knew this was coming.
I should have moved my setup better so we see my pillow too. But anyways, yeah.
Oh,
right.
I did see that in one of the videos I brought up for screen. So yeah,
Awesome.
no, we have lots of. I do owe Tracy a cup, and I'm sure everybody now wants one. I just as soon as we get the quarantine lifted, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday.
Right. People are actually writing Tony now during the YouTubes and saying, "Please give Tracy a cup."
Just get her a cup so she stops.
Can you please give her a cup?
That's the ongoing joke now, huh? I have the cup somewhere too. I'll be sure to bring it out next time.
Oh, okay. Wait, what?
So, Jason, of all the places that you've gone, I kind of have 2 questions in a way. So the first one is, has there been a location that just stands out to you the most? And then no matter wherever it is you've been, is there a location? So if we pinpoint Tokyo, for example, if we just focus there, what was your favorite location while you were doing that travel video? What was the most memorable moment? Hopefully it wasn't the place that was under construction.
Negative, positive experiences are always going to be probably the most memorable ones. So it's really hard for me to say. What I will say is the reason why I just, me and Vivian, we love traveling is, I'm sure we all kind of feel the same way. We're shooting in our local hometown. There's only so many times we can shoot the same iconic building. It's like 53rd time. Like I'm going to approach it from this angle. It gets boring. You know what I'm saying? So going to these types of locations, we've been to Cuba, we've been to Mexico, we've been to the more nature side of things in the States and Hong Kong and Japan. Just being in a different location, a different vibe. Our creative juices just start popping. We're just like, wow, what if we come over here and get this angle? Or what if we hide behind a tree and do a gimbal shot here? So for us, it's not so much as to having a particularly favorite spot. It's just being out in locations like these just, gives us this motivation to do something cool is enough for us. So that's the big reason why we love creating any types of travel videos when we're out there. So
Do you feel that you're more creative when you're on location in other countries as opposed
absolutely.
to being, in the US when you're doing them?
I want to say no. It's just more like when you're in your hometown, because I do like a
Right.
lot of lens reviews and camera tests. You guys know that. And sometimes it's just like, oh, it's not really convenient for us to go to Yosemite right now. Let's say drive 8 hours to go get some nature scenic shot, even though I really want to do that. So we're just like, well, the video needs to come out in 1 hour. Let's just head on over to downtown really quickly, try to grab a couple of shots. So it's just like, when you're bored making the content, making the work, making the art, it really shows. So when you're out somewhere and you're having a lot of fun making something cool, then that really reflects on the work that you create. And when you're excited about something, your audience is excited about something. And I've been caught out before too. Sometimes my audience would watch one video and they're like, hey, your energy is a little bit low, and they can tell. And
Yeah.
I would look back at some of these videos and I'm like, yeah, that particular day I wasn't really feeling it. It wasn't like I wasn't feeling the content, but the mood was definitely not there. As opposed to some of my other videos where I'm just like, oh guys, you got to buy this lens. Oh shoot, this cool shot that I get. There's definitely a huge difference to that. So I would say, being excited about your work, being excited about what you do, really does reflect on the result.
Jason,
Yeah.
we've got a great question here from Hack Young K Chung. Do you and Vivian travel more on a project travel or project related travel, or more on leisure that turn into great YouTube video?
I would say a lot of it is these are the spots that we were going to go already. It's not like, hey, let's get this brand involved and let's just roll the dice and see where we're going to go, or the brand gets to choose. No, it's definitely like, hey, Tony, hey, ZEISS, we're going to Japan. Is it cool we do this thing with you guys? And it's like, yeah, totally, absolutely. Or, hey, Sony, we're going to Hong Kong. Is it cool we get the 6400? I think it'd be really cool to do something cool like this. And they're like, yeah, for sure. So it's already always like something that personally that we want to go to, that we were already going to go to, as opposed to it being decided for us. Now, sometimes, there are like, oh, can you come shoot some behind the scenes for us? It's not something that we choose, but we still take that opportunity anyways, because we're like, hey, this location looks fun. While we're out there just doing some work for clients, let's shoot a YouTube video too. So that's definitely how things can work out in terms of destination and the type of content that we make.
And
Yeah.
curious, just for me, I know you talked earlier about sometimes you look at Instagram to see locations or kind of get some ideas. What Instagram pages do you think are your best muses?
When it comes to the next destination we're going to go to, it's not so much the page itself, but the hashtags. So
Yes.
when you can follow hashtags on Instagram, you just punch in, whether it be Japan, Hong Kong, Cuba, and your feed, will start populating these photos. So for me, for like Hong Kong, right before Hong Kong, I would type Hong Kong, get all these, feeds that are coming to me from anyone who's posting in that hashtag, and I'll be like, okay, cool. And then once the travel is done, I unfollow those hashtags, and whatever the next destination is, I'm following that destination, because whatever new photos come in, not only do they reflect on maybe the current situation of the current view of what it is, but also getting inspiration, getting that juice and spark going, getting some ideas on how to approach a certain scene or what kind of camera angles or movements to do, that definitely helps a lot. So follow hashtags.
Yeah, they're definitely very helpful because even when I'm looking at locations that I'm going to, I like to go into them, and it's especially if there's something that's very popular, they'll have where people are sharing the story, so you can kind of be more certain that that's actually at that moment to kind of gauge, oh, the water is probably a good color here, or oh, it's not a lot of people out at this location right now. So it kind of helps you gauge, for whatever kind of trip you're trying to do for that particular day.
And to be honest with you, it's probably one strategy that I can say can help you save some money, because especially if you're trying to catch certain things that happen maybe once in a blue moon, and maybe the weather is not right, and for
Yeah.
you to check could save you some hotel costs. One personally for us, for the ZEISS project that we did, cherry blossoms are, a pain to like try to catch at the right time because they've only bloomed for so long. And, when you hit that peak bloom, that's when it's the most beautiful, right? So when we were up at Mount Fuji, and Mount Fuji is not exactly the easiest or the fastest way to get to. So when we got there, it was still so cold that the flowers are not blooming. They've all shriveled up. We got a great view of Mount Fuji, but we ain't got the views with the cherry blossoms. So we're like, oh man, we already spent like this much money. How about we come back next week? Maybe next week it'll be much warmer and we can catch the cherry blossoms. And then I was like, we were considering, diving into the budget a little bit more to try to go back to that particular location to get that one shot. But unfortunately, we checked on Instagram, we checked the stories, and we're just like, yeah, no, they're still not in full bloom yet. We can't go back. So it did save us the trip to having to go back and, get a space, get in everything just to be housed up there just to get the shots. So definitely the Instagram stories and hashtags really help a lot in that regards.
So one thing also, like as far as, once you've captured the content, you got your content on hand, how long does it take you to edit a video like this? What are you using and how long does it take to edit? Because this is an amazing production.
It's, I definitely had some delays. I had to like go to Tony and be like, yo, bro, I need a little bit more time. It's daunting, especially when you're out for like a month and you're trying to crank out like 5 videos and obviously the end product. It's like, it gets really overwhelming. And this goes out to anybody too, who may not need to do this whole flesh out production, but to do maybe their own personal little travel video. I tell my friends this, I was like, look, the moment you come back from your trip, just start working on that 2-3 minute highlight. Don't make it too long. Just make it a 2-3 minute thing, and make sure you do it before before the month ends, because right after that, you're always going to be like sitting in the back of your mind, I got to get to this video. I got to get this video, and you'll never edit it. Right. So for me, this goes across my whole sort of like work ethic. When it comes to working on a project, I have to get it done immediately. I try to give myself like a 48-hour deadline, or for even longer projects like this, it's like, okay, I will dedicate a week, dedicate 2 weeks to get this done. I'm the world's slowest editor. I feel like I edit really slow, but giving myself that ample amount of time and having a deadline is definitely crucial to getting this done. So the strategy is definitely to not edit while you're on the trip. Maybe kind of like look back at some of the clips that you've shot the same day or the day after, just to make sure, all the technical stuff is still working. Just kind of like, do some QA, quality assurance, make sure all your gear is still working. But aside from that, I save all of the edit when we get back to the States and just be in the room, focus, and hammer everything out. So I would say at least 2 weeks.
What software are you using to edit in?
Using Adobe Premiere Pro.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good tidbit as far as, not editing while you're actually on location. That was something that was a bad habit of mine. And is it that just because you prefer to do that once you're, back home in your space and can actually go through everything at that point, or you actually just want to enjoy the time that you have on location and save the work for once you get back?
Absolutely. I mean, like, this, what we do, we're incredibly blessed with how our work is to be able to travel and do the stuff that we do, and also at the same time work. And your health is really important especially when you're traveling, and when you're in a foreign location where it's just like you don't speak the language, you don't know how to access these certain things. It's not wise to be sick in any way. So we've been prioritizing our health, especially when we're out traveling. So getting ample amount of sleep, making sure, we're well rested. There are days where we do have to push our bodies a little bit, whether it be through a hiking to the top of the mountain, not top of the mountain, but, hiking to a certain spot to like get the photo, so the last thing that I want to do is to stay up, an extra 3 hours to try to put out a video or try to like edit a video together. But I definitely want to do a good of a job as I can. So I'd rather do it in the space where I'm comfortable with, where I don't have to worry too much. So for us, when we're out traveling, health is always first, and then do all the capturing, do all the creative sort of movement and angles and camera stuff, and then save all the editing, all the put together stuff when we're back home.
I know.
Well, I mean, it goes back.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go
jump
ahead.
on me. I was just going to say, I know as working with you on the producer side, and oftentimes I'll find that the creators that I'm working with will often get back to editing, and it just you once you dive into it, it always seems to take a little bit longer, or you find a way of putting it together that you hadn't realized when you were blocking it out in your mind. And yeah, that's one of those things. And it's as a producer, it's always good to not have a finite time, especially when you're doing some type of just creative content. I mean, certainly if there's advertising that needs to go up on a certain insertion date, that's different. But otherwise, yeah, it's that time, just it sometimes it just takes time to breathe in the editing, and you have to allow for that.
Yeah, so I've actually want to bring up the whole time that we were doing the film, any types of like the travel films, we don't exactly have a story in mind going into it initially. So we're always talking about location scouting, planning out the locations. It's like this spot looks cool, let's just go and do it, but not necessarily know where that piece of the story fits in. And for this particular project that we were doing in Japan, I had no idea. I know the more educational content that we were going for, so that's already all planned out. But as in terms of the final videos, like how do we present, like what is it, what are we trying to tell here? And it wasn't until, like Tony said, just kind of like bringing it back into the editing room and kind of having an overview that's where I start seeing the story that I was trying to go for. And for Japan, you know, when in conversations you bring up about Japan, you kind of think of it as like a very futuristic type of location destination. But when you're going there, you see the hustle and bustle in the city, you see the futuristic technology that they have going on. But at the same time, in these little pocketed areas of the city, you see like temples here and there. So they're well in their traditions as well. So I'm sitting here looking at over my clips. I'm like, wow, there's a temple right here. Right next to it, there's a really advanced looking tower. So what is the story that I'm seeing here? What am I experiencing? So that got me thinking I should put together in a way where it's like traditional meets modern meets futuristic. So you'll see little glitches and blips in my videos because I'm trying to show there's calmness and there's peace in this hustle and bustle, but there's also this future that they're working towards. So I'm trying to blend all of that into my video. And I think I want to say I did a pretty good job, I would say. And
Oh yeah.
over the course of the couple of months, I feel like this particular video has jumped up in views. I want to say minimum 50,000. Optimistically, I want to say 100,000 views has increased because people are itching to
Wow.
travel. But for the most part, I think this video really encapsulates my experience in Japan, the tradition, modern, and future.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and of course we were happy with the content the way it came out. The story you tried to tell does come across there. It's pretty excellent.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so take us home, Tony.
All right. Well, one last question. I didn't want to let it go. Do you once your scraps of film hit the floor in the editing room, shall we say, do you keep everything? Do you archive everything, or once you've got the finished piece, all the extra images and video reels get thrown away?
No, for this particular project, I think we definitely kept everything. With my usual YouTube videos, I would say the more like, I guess, time, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just if it's for that particular moment in time, then those usually get scrapped. But
Mm.
for something like this, I feel like this is something that I personally want to hold on to. Some of the raw files that we captured for such a big project like this, I definitely want to hold on to it. It's a really nice thing to just have and kind of look back on it. Maybe 10 years from now, I can pull it back up and be like, oh, let's see, how I shot this. Let's see what the raw footage looks like, or maybe put together something cool after that. So definitely something that I put into the bank for the future.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to look to the future. We'll have to talk about where you guys are going to go next. Once LA opens up and travel becomes a lot more safe.
Oh, we're ready. We're itching.
I bet you are. Yeah, no, I'm sure we all are. I mean, I know that I'm tired of seeing this background behind me every week. But well, thank you very much, Jason, for coming on with us again and talking about the videography and the travel that you're doing and some of the other educational pieces that you're going up. Everybody, you can find Jason. Just type in Jason Vong at YouTube, and he will pop right up. Make sure to subscribe to him because he's got a lot of good content going on on out there, whether it's for us or in just photography and videography in general. It's really great, his channel. Kenneth and Tracy, thanks again for being our moderators and interviewers here. Always good to have you on the channel and have you with our group here. It's great to have everybody here. Thank you, everybody, once again. And thank you, everybody who tuned in today. We do appreciate you coming by and stopping by and asking some questions and hopefully learning a thing or two with us here while we're on the air and interviewing people. Next week, we've got a couple of great interviews coming up. Be sure to make sure that you check our Instagram page for that information. We'll be putting it out at the top of the week. So from all of us, have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye now.